Now, the Teals have been desperate to present themselves as independent, but according to new research, they've been voting with the radical Greens most of the time. The parliamentary research published by Jeff Chambers in the Oz Today shows that the 7 Teal MPs voted with the Greens between 73 and 81% of the time since the last election. And here's how that individual breakdown looks. So this is on substantive bills, which, if passed, became law. Zoe Daniel voted with the Greens 81% of the time, Sophie Scamps 80%, Monique Ryan 78%, Zali Steggall 76%, Kylie Tink 76%, Allegra Spender 74% of the time, and Kate Cheney 73%. And the research shows, parliamentary research, that the group of 7 Teals mostly voted together as a pack, and they voted the same way 83% of the time. Now, the current Albanese government is a far-left Labor Party, as I said, unlike the moderate Labor governments in New South Wales and South Australia. But even Albanese has called the Greens extremists.
It is unacceptable that misinformation is being consciously and deliberately spread by some Green senators and MPs who have engaged in this in demonstrations outside offices and online. That includes knowingly misrepresenting motions that are moved in this parliament.
Joining me now to discuss is the manager of Opposition Business, Paul Fletcher. Paul, thanks for your time. Look, can you explain what this means if the Teals are voting alongside the Greens around 70% of the time?
Well, this research is very significant because it is based on an analysis of the Teals voting record in now more than 2 years of the federal parliament. And what it finds is that on the substantive bills, so a second reading or a third reading vote on a bill, if you add all of those up, then up to 81% of the time, a Teal MP is voting with the Greens. And so this is, I think, a very significant finding. If we look at some of the instances where this occurred, for example, there was an attempt by the Greens to move a motion or have the Parliament pass a motion shortly after the appalling terrorist attack in Israel, which would have criticised Israel and would have accused it of war crimes and of an illegal occupation of Gaza. Now, Sophie Scamps and Kylie Tink, 2 of the Teals, voted with that attempted Greens motion. Earlier this year, there was a motion moved by the Greens, by Adam Bant, which would have taken the proposed super profit tax, so-called super profit tax on gas, proposed by the government, doubled it. And the Teals supported that motion. So I think many of the people who voted for the Teals would be quite surprised to find that they are voting with the extreme radical Greens as often as they are.
Well, the Teals do mostly pose a threat to the Liberal Party, not to Labor. Realistically, do you expect the Liberals will be able to win any seats back from the Teals at the next election, and if so, which?
Well, our focus will be on communicating to the Australian people, in whichever electorate they happen to live, that first of all we are facing an economic tailspin under this government. We've seen real incomes drop by close to 10%. Of course, we've seen inflation sticky and persistent. This government has no idea what to do about it. So our proposition to voters, in whichever seat you're in, whether it's a seat currently represented by a Teal MP, a Labor MP, whoever it might be, our proposition will be that the coalition, the Liberal and National parties, have the experience and the capacity to deliver the capable economic management that we need so that Australians can start to feel better off again. Because at the moment, nobody feels better off compared to 2.5 years ago. And that's going to be the case, I'd suggest to you, wherever in Australia you live, whichever electorate you're in.
But do you think there are any realistic propositions of the Liberals winning back seats from the Teals? I mean, what do you think about Allegra Spender in Wentworth? Do you think there's a chance there for the Liberals? Which other seats are winnable?
Well, I think what we need to do, and indeed what we are doing, is getting capable candidates in the field. Ro Knox in Wentworth, for example, working very hard. Amelia Hamer in Kooyong, and a range of other candidates, Tim Wilson in Goldstein, working hard, making the case to voters in those electorates that a Liberal and National government has the right experience and capabilities to turn round this economic tailspin that Australia is in at the moment. And so that'll be our focus. These will be decisions for the Australian people. But it is important, I think, that people understand, if they have a Teal Member of Parliament right now, that the Teal's party is voting with the Greens party between 76 and 81% of the time on those motions on substantive bills. And so the Australian people will make up their own mind, but it's important that they understand the true character of all of the candidates that they're considering when it comes time for the next election.
All right, Paul Fletcher, really appreciate your time.